coverage of Grand Prix Phoenix. I'm Brian David Marshall, joined in the booth by Pro Tour champion Jacob Van Lunen, and we're going to watch another Pro Tour champion, Seth Manfield, playing Jun. He's playing against Jeremy Loza. The matchup is against Red Green Eldrazi. Jake, give us the quick overview of how these two decks fare against each other.
So traditionally, the decks that want to be doing more expensive, more powerful things are some of the better decks against a deck like Jund. The top of Jeremy's library can be really powerful. Jeremy's deck isn't quite as big as a really bad matchup for Seth, something like Tron, but it is still big enough where it's not the type of deck that Seth wants to be playing against.
Seth starts out with a 0-1 Tarmogoyf, and it is going to take a Lightning Bolt here. Briefly, it is 1-2. Jeremy Loza, he's a local player. He's from Phoenix. He's been playing on and off since Ice Age. Started playing again pretty solidly around Khans of Tarkir, but not anywhere near this level where he's playing against, world champion, Pro Tour champion Seth Manfield. So he's pretty excited to test himself against this level of competition. Says he has 4 kids, 11, 9, 7, and 5. And that's basically his opponents most days.
Yeah.
Here we see an Inquisition of Kozilek from Seth Manfield. He sees a hand with a couple of lands, Cavern of Souls. Looks like is that a Reality Smasher, Matter Reshaper, and is that a Snapcaster Mage in there?
I think it's a Scavenging Ooze.
Oh, Scavenging Ooze. There you go.
Yeah.
Seth Manfield, we talked about earlier. Again, 4 Pro Tour top 8s, the Pro Tour Ixalan winner. Hour of Devastation, he top 8'd. Shadows over Innistrad and Fate Reforged, both top 8s. Fate Reforged, a modern Pro Tour. And, of course, 14 Grand Prix top 8s with 5 wins.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's a resume.
Lots of hardware on Seth Manfield's mantle. All right, so Scavenging Ooze starts things off on Jeremy's side of the board. Follows up with a Noble Hierarch as well on the turn.
And already, Jeremy, next turn, will have access to 5 mana. Scary thing. Reality Smasher, a very good card against Jund. Seth missing some land drops here. That's going to be a big problem for him.
Yeah, plays another Tarmogoyf, but it's going to have a little bit of a problem putting on any kind of weight here with Scavenging Ooze doing some work.
Yeah, currently a 3-4, but could be shrunk at a moment's notice here.
By the way, that Cavern of Souls named Ooze.
It's like you don't see very often. Although when you're playing the Red-Green Eldrazi deck and you're not playing against somebody who would have access to counter magic, there's really no need to name Eldrazi with those caverns. You can just name something like Ooze or Human and cast a card like Noble Hierarch or Scavenging Ooze.
All right, well, Seth Manfield still scuffling here.
And now Tarmogoyf getting in here. And remember, Jeremy does have the Scavenging Ooze, and this means that he can, if he wants to, use his mana and, really just... Okay. So Dark Confidant coming down here.
And Scavenging Ooze starts to get to work. He would take out the Tarmogoyf. A little irony there. And then Seth's going to gain a little life from the Grove of the Burn Willows. There's another cavern.
All right. Got a Reality Smasher.
Yeah, and that's not a surprise to Seth. He saw that earlier on with the Inquisition of Kozilek, and he's going to take 9 here. Pretty hefty chunk of his life. Dark Confidant's going to eat another 2.
And still no third land here for Seth. And while Jund can operate on a relatively low number of lands, it's not going to be easy to handle cards like Reality Smasher when you're not able to cast more than one spell in a turn.
Let's see. The second Cavern of Souls named Eldrazi. So Seth did find that third land, but can he find a way out here from under the Reality Smasher Scavenging Ooze beating that he's taking?
It's going to be hard. I mean, Seth could have some combination of... I guess he really needs Maelstrom Pulse in order to deal with the Reality Smasher. He could discard a card to that. The Noble Hierarch on Jeremy's side of the board really makes him much more resistant to a card like Liliana the Veil than he would be otherwise. But Seth's not completely out of it yet, though he is in a very rough situation here. So recognizing that Jeremy's on only a single card, decides to go up with the Liliana of the Veil.
It's that last card. It was a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get a Tarmogoyf count. Well, it's not going to really matter because Jeremy's going to be able to really control the size of that Tarmogoyf here.
And Seth leaving Jeremy on no cards here, it puts Seth in a position where he's kind of taking a little bit of a gambit and making Jeremy decide whether or not Jeremy wants to take out this Liliana.
Looks like he ripped another Reality Smasher. No, it was a Thought-Knot Seer.
Still a very, very good hit there.
You see Scavenging Ooze, Bloodbraid Elf, Lightning Bolt, and Dark Confidant. And Jeremy's going to take care of get that Bloodbraid Elf out of there, not letting Seth be able to get too wide here. So we get a double block on the Scavenging Ooze.
And I like this from Seth a lot because this means that if Seth is somehow able to get the Noble Hierarch off the board, if he's able to, say, draw a red source that doesn't deal him 2 when it comes into play, then he can use that Liliana of the Veil and take out Jeremy's Reality Smasher in that way.
Although also he's needed his Dark Confidant to die there.
Yes, also true. And at this point, it's basically over because the Thought-Knot Seer in conjunction with the Reality Smasher is such a problem. So what Seth would really, really need here is a removal spell for the Thought-Knot Seer, fetch land that can get him a mountain, then a Fatal Push the Fatal Push is for the Thought-Knot Seer, a bigger removal spell, and then the Reality Smasher. We already know a lot of his hands, so.
All right, well, there's the Fatal Push. Step 1.
Yep.
Sack one of your creatures. That's step 2. He's going to sacrifice the Thought-Knot Seer, and that's going to let Seth draw a card. So if he could go swamp another Liliana, that would be great. But Dark Confidant.
And he's dead on board. Reality Smasher does trample through for victory.
Yep, points to Seth, and Seth says, okay, that's good enough.
Yeah, that'll do.
And Jeremy takes game 1 against the 4-time Pro Tour Top 8 competitor and world champion. And now the players will reach their sideboards. What does Jund do about a deck that's really, when you think about it, a Lightning Bolt deck, a Fatal Push deck, a deck that's really designed to kill the cheap and small creatures that you see so often in Modern? How does it deal with the big threats that you see out of this Eldrazi deck?
So Seth does not have access to a lot of big removal spells post-board. In his main deck, he does have a couple copies of Maelstrom Pulse, which he would have really liked to draw there. He has 4 Liliana of the Veil, of course. Those are really nice ways to deal with the bigger threats. I imagine Seth may bring in something like Anger of the Gods, surprisingly enough. That card is very good at cleaning up the mana creatures that Jeremy plays, and also quite good against Matter Reshaper. And in doing so, it really makes Seth's Liliana of the Veil a much more potent way to get Jeremy's larger threats off of the table. Because as it stands, the makeup of Seth's deck is not well suited to fight against Jeremy until Seth gets to the stage of the game where his Tarmogoyfs are actually bigger than Jeremy's Reality Smashers.
Seems like he now, with Tarmogoyf being such a big part of the package for Seth, what does Jeremy do? Does he have access to something like Relic of Progenitus, or is that a card that's very relevant for him? What are we going to see there?
He's perhaps going to bring in a single copy of Relic of Progenitus, though the fact that he is a deck that's playing Acceleration alongside threats means that every single sideboard card that Jeremy brings in has a really large effect on the way those draws are going to play out for him. He's already a deck that does not mulligan well, and by bringing in cards that are reactive, that can cause some big problems for him. One thing that Jeremy could bring in here that could be pretty exciting is Spellskite. Spellskite is a really nice way to protect the larger Eldrazi that Jeremy is playing. Jeremy also has some interesting long game plans against many other people. I think Chalice of the Void is a card that could potentially come in here and be put on 2 when Seth has, no threats in play. Could be put on 1 when he's trying to protect against something like Lightning Bolt or Fatal Push. But in reality, I think we may see Jeremy only sideboard in a single Spellskite. If we see him sideboard in more cards, I think the Relic is a card I wouldn't be surprised by. And a card like Chalice of the Void and or Crucible of Worlds is another card I would expect to see here.
All right, well, players are shuffling up. I can tell you some of the other players we have in the feature match area this round. We have a Time Walk match coming up for you. That's going to be Ben Seck versus Carleton-Barnes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
two of my favorite people.
Two awesome people. Gabe is playing, I believe, Burn. But he is up against Ben Seck, who is playing the Taking Turns deck.
Yeah, I've played this deck while sitting next to Ben in front of the same computer probably about 15 matches now, so I'm really excited to watch it in action on camera here. One thing I'd like to talk about with the match that we're watching right now is a really crucial sideboarding decision that I'd like to see how it works both on the play and on the draw here, where Seth Manfield has access to Fulminator Mage on the board.
Oh, interesting.
And one would think that's the type of card you want against a deck that's trying to cast 5-mana spells, but I'm not sure if Seth's going to want it in the game where he's on the draw. So I'm really interested to see how this shakes out and whether or not Seth brings these in both on the play and the draw. I think it's very likely we see them here in Game 2.
I can't tell you, Jeremy did bring in the Relic of Progenitus. I see it on the end there in his opening hand. He's not going to keep that opening hand. Neither is Seth. Both of these players are going down to 6 here and going to continue shuffling up.
Now, mulliganing definitely favors Seth. This is something we talked about before. Jeremy's deck, again, he's playing cards like Noble Hierarch, cards that don't have very high impact on their own. And because of that, he needs to draw some combination of those cards and his more expensive cards in order to make his deck operate most efficiently. Whereas Seth, every single card in his deck is just a very powerful individual card.
Also in the feature match area this round, Huang Hao-Shan playing Jund and Noah Walker playing Traverse Shadow. So just give you an idea of what they... So we're starting to see a couple of repeats here. 2 Junds, 3 Junds if we get Huang on camera. Our second Shadow deck, but different than the one we saw last round with David Ochoa. He was playing Grixis Shadow. This is Traverse Shadow.
And those are very different decks. Death Shadow is a really powerful card. It's a card that has become less popular.
I was just going to say, I feel like that deck or that group of archetypes has just sort of faded down a little. There was a time where people were like, you got to ban Death Shadow. This deck's too good. Why has that deck diminished?
So I think before the unbanning of Bloodbraid Elf and Chase the Mind Sculptor, it was not in the best place in the format. And then after those unbannings, people were so excited to play with Chase the Mind Sculptor and Bloodbraid Elf that they kind of stopped playing with them. But I think those decks are perhaps the best decks in Modern right now. Very well positioned for this weekend.
All right, both players decide to keep on 6 cards. The Vancouver Mulligan, always very interesting in a format full of fetch lands.
Yeah.
you're like, man, I'm not going to keep. It doesn't matter, or I'm going to keep it. It doesn't matter. Yeah. I'm going to just shuffle it away on the first turn anyway. We see Wooded Foothills into Overgrown Tomb, and this is probably going to be a Thoughtseize or an Inquisition or Kozilek here from Seth Manfield.
I would imagine so.
Does he also play Thoughtseize, or does he just play the Inquisition? Yeah, he plays both, yes.
He's on 6 targeted discard spells here.
And also has the Colligan's commands, which can be also a discard spell once you've dismantled your opponent's hand. Wow, look at this. 3 lightning bolts, a Bloodbraid Elf, and is that a Bloodbraid Elf?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a Matter of Shaper
and a Matter of Shaper.
Only 1 land there for Jeremy.
I didn't see if he kept or bottomed his first card. There you see the best bolt. A little bit of editorializing going on at the card viewer.
Lightning Bolt, one of the best cards in Modern.
Magic 25, is out right now. People are, this nostalgia. I mean, it doesn't get more nostalgic than Lightning Bolt, right? This is one of the first cards that, I remember getting to play with him and like, whoa, this is a good card. Where you start to appreciate the difference between the good cards and the bad cards. Like, wow, I probably want more of these.
Yeah, I should play a bunch of these.
All right, so turn 2 Tarmogoyf from Seth. By the way, he's down to 13 here as he's taken 6 damage from his shock lands, his fetch lands, his Thoughtseize, a lightning bolt. So, we saw a handful of lightning bolts for Jeremy. This is going to get a little bit hairy for Seth.
Yeah, Jeremy had 3 bolts. Seth put himself down to, 14 life. That means that with 9 points of damage, Seth's down to 5 just from the cards he's seen from Jeremy. 3.
A Thoughtseize, which is almost certainly going to take a lightning bolt here.
And just net him 1 life?
I don't know.
I think it takes what he drew, probably. So I don't think he might take the Bloodbraid or what he drew. I don't think he's going to take the Bolt here. So I think he just take Bloodbraid.
All right, so Lightning Bolt, Bloodbraid Elf, Cavern of Souls. Seth's at 7. What is scarier, Seth Manfield? You're saying Bloodbraid?
I take the Bloodbraid.
Bloodbraid is a 2 turns from now problem. Lightning Bolt is a this turn problem.
Yeah, the thing is, though, is that my life total is more than 3 right now. So.
All right. Well, Seth Manfield agrees with you. That's a big point on your tally board there. And in comes the Bloodbraid Elf. The Tarmogoyf. With instant sorcery, creature, and land. The Treetop Village.
And that Treetop Village does speed up this clock here right now for Seth.
All right, so there's the Cavern. It's going to name Eldrazi. And there we see Ronus the Indomitable.
Yeah, which doesn't do anything right now. Has the potential to do something in the future, but...
Yes, Treetop Village getting in. This is all I want in Magic. I want Treetop Village to be good.
And the thing about Treetop Village here is, Jeremy was at 16. That Tarmogoyf had 4 power. It was going to take Seth 4 turns to end this game, and because that Treetop Village, it cuts it down to 3. potentially even fewer, depending on what Seth has in hand.
He does know there's a lightning bolt in hand, so, I mean, he may still want to activate the Treetop Village and draw that out. But it looks like he has found a Bloodbraid Elf with the correct art, too.
Very nice.
And he's going to Bloodbraid into Dark Confidant.
And this is an interesting situation here because he has to choose whether or not he wants to play the Dark Confidant.
And then why wouldn't you want to play it? Because he's so low?
Seth's at 7 here, and he knows that Jeremy has that Lightning Bolt in hand. So Jeremy, who's in a pretty bad situation and can't really do anything, could perhaps steal this game from Seth simply by having Seth reveal a card like Bloodbraid Elf, and then he goes to 3 and gets killed by a Lightning Bolt. So Seth may think to himself, okay, well, depending on how far ahead I think I am, I might not need this Dark Confidant. And if I don't need this Dark Confidant, then I don't want to risk flipping up a Bloodbraid Elf to it.
It feels out of line with the flavor text of Dark Confidant here.
Yeah. There's some cost to this greatness, Bob. There is. Jeez.
But
Bob.
Seth is deep here in the tank. It's not that often you see someone refuse to play the free spell off of a Bloodbraid Elf.
And Seth's very good at weighing options like this. This is
greatness at any cost. There we go.
Yeah, and I like this play. I like putting it into play. I think that though it does give Jeremy another avenue to victory, the Dark Confidant's value itself on the board, Seth, while he is in the driver's seat here, this also forces Jeremy into a decision where Jeremy has to decide whether or not he wants to continue to try to attack Seth's life total or to be reactive. Because if Seth puts that Dark Confidant into play, it means that it's significantly more likely that Jeremy is not going to bolt this Bloodbraid Elf right now. Jeremy's probably just going to take this damage and hope for the best.
Oh, the old count on my opponent's Dark Confidant to kill them play. He's like, all right, I'm going to bolt you.
Yeah, and there are some live ones here for Jeremy.
How about a Reality Smasher?
Wow. And that was a almost perfect sequence of draws there for Jeremy. He needed the land that produced 2 mana, and he needed a Reality Smasher.
Wow, Jeremy Loza, he goes to 4-0, and he defeats, has to be the most accomplished player in the room.
Mm-hmm.
A Pro Tour win, a World Championship win, 5 Grand Prix wins. This is kind of like, you're playing at the Grand Prix, you're playing in the Swiss rounds, and then you're like, oh, who am I going to play this round? Please, you have your little mental checklist. Please not Seth Manfield. Please not Owen Turnwald. Please not William Jett, And then you see Seth Manfield's name there. And it's an opportunity, though, also, to go, all right, let me see how well he does. So great job by him.
It's how you get better at Magic. The best people at Magic are the people who've had the opportunity to play against the best people most often.
Wow. That's a story of 4 kids at home maybe watching the game. That's going to be a great story to tell. And who knows? Again, he's off to a 4-0 start here. Could be the start of something else. Again, he said he's been playing for a long time, but only pretty seriously since Khans of Tarkir. So we're going to get a chance to talk to Jeremy in a few minutes where I think we're setting him up and see what he has to say about that moment in the spotlight. How do you is that how you think this matchup plays out normally? Do you think Jund is a little bit of an underdog to this deck again that has just way bigger threats than your answers?
Yeah, I think in general, Jund is not the best suited deck to beat a deck that's trying to cast bigger and scarier things.
All right, well, the person who is casting those bigger and scarier things is Jeremy Loza. Jeremy, tell us about your tournament up until this round 4. What were your first 3 rounds like? How did the tournament go for you?
I played against 8-Rack, Jeskai Control, Jund and Jund again.
So now you get to the pairings board for round 4, and you look for your name, and you see Seth Manfield across from you. What are you thinking about?
Yeah, I think there's no way this is going to go well for me at all.
Now, It said we heard in our little Skype chat you have 4 kids. Were they watching Dad defeat the best player in the world this round?
They probably weren't. They were at a T-ball game, so we'll have to watch the replay later.
You'll be able to get them the Twitch replay, I'm sure.
Of course.
So tell me a little bit. I understand you've been playing Magic for a long time. You started where?
I started around Ice Age and played off and on through that. Took a long break, came back in Konzatok here, and been playing pretty steady since then.
What brought you back into the game? What was it about cons?
I actually just walked into Target and saw it on the shelves. And I said, hey, I could do this. My kids are old enough; they can maybe play now. We bought a couple boxes and started playing.
And do you actually play Magic as a family? That's awesome.
Yeah, my older 2 kids play, just kind of casually though.
That's still, I mean, that's the best type of kitchen table Magic when you get to play with your family.
Exactly.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, what are your Magic goals? I mean, this is, I know your local GP. Have you been trying to get to the Pro Tour? Are you trying to take your game to that next level?
No, just kind of playing to have fun. No real long-term goals, just something fun to do.
So, what's your best? Is this your first GP? Have you played in GPs before? What's
I
that
played in
experience?
GP Vegas last year and did terrible. So this is my first one where I've done this well, which
First time you've beaten a world champion, Pro Tour champion, 5-time GP champion.
definitely.
How was? I think a lot of people come to an event like this, and the pros can be pretty intimidating. What was it like sitting across from Seth? What was that like from your perspective?
Seth was real cool. He gave me some small talk, just like a normal Magic player with a whole lot of titles.
All right, well, Jeremy, it was great to see you. I actually do have one question quickly before I let you go. Red Green Eldrazi, what was the allure of that deck for you coming into this tournament?
I saw a list online. I had been planning on playing Blue Red Blood Moon. I just tried it out one day online, and it was performing really well. So I decided to build it and bring it here. It's kind of a close to a last-minute decision.
And you like this deck against Jund in particular?
Yeah, it does pretty good. It has a pretty good Jund matchup.
I mean, it definitely has like lifetime bragging rights over Jund right now.
Right.
So, all right, Jeremy, good luck the rest of the way in the tournament. Hopefully we get to talk to you a couple more times over the course of this weekend.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, that was Jeremy Loza. Great job by him. Pretty exciting to see. I know we've got some more Magic to show you. We've got some burn. We've got some turns.
Burn and turn.
Burn and turn coming up. But first, we have a couple of quick messages. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Magic here at Grand Prix Phoenix. to the booth. Brian David Marshall here with Pro Tour champion Jake Van Lunen, and we are going to watch two members of team coverage actually playing in the feature match area this round in our time walk match. It is the Ben Seck and Uncle GCB, Gabe Carleton-Barnes. Let's catch up and see what they're doing. Ben Seck playing taking turns. He is not casting control magic on 2-1 flyers. He is actually casting multiple time walks over the course of a game and trying to literally take all the turns. Gabe Carleton-Barnes, on the other hand, is playing burn, and he is simply looking to reduce his opponent's life total to 0. It's a pretty simple formula in theory.
Yeah, now what's interesting is once Ben's deck starts doing what it does, there's really nothing that Gabe can do to interact. However, Gabe only gives Ben a very small window in which he can enact that plan before the game just ends.
So against the goldfish, which is what we say when you're just like, if you're playing an opponent who does nothing, which could be Ben's deck for a couple of turns, what's the fundamental turn for the burn deck in terms of like, if they're just throwing burn spells at your face every turn, what's the turn that they can conceivably win?
I think turn 4 is about where you're at with burn. When you take into account things like Thing in the Ice and whatnot, maybe around like 4.5, 5.
All right, well, Gabe kicks things off with a Monastery Swift Spear. And I think we might see a Thing in the Ice here, yes, from Ben Seck. There you see Thing in the Ice, 4 counters go on it. Every time he plays an instant or sorcery, he can remove one of those counters, and when he removes the last counter, it transforms into the Awoken Horror, which bounces all non-horrors, and then becomes, a 7/8.
Interesting fact, Spellskite is a horror. I've seen that interaction happen this week.
Inspiring Vantage for Gabe Carleton-Barnes. And you see a book full of matches in his hand, including a Lightning Helix.
Now, something that the burn deck takes advantage of in a format like Modern is how much damage most opponents take from their lands. Gabe here, playing against Ben Seck, is probably not thrilled about the fact that his opponent is playing a pile of basic lands that will deal him absolutely no damage. That means that Gabe is likely going to need to resolve a full 7 burn spells in order to win this game.
Wow, well, you know what? He's getting right to it here. Attacks with the Monastery Swift Spear, no block from Ben Seck, and Gabe's like, fine, I'll skull crack you. I'll get a prowess trigger, and I'll deal some extra damage to you, and whatever other text is on this card, I don't really care about it right now. It's just a burn spell.
And I'm surprised by the no block there from Ben. Looks like Ben has an exhaustion in hand.
He does have an exhaustion in his hand. That is one of my all-time favorite Magic cards. I love this card. It is it's a secret little card. I don't think well, I guess it's not a big secret. It's since people have been playing the Taking Turns deck, but it's wonderful. Your opponent just doesn't get to untap.
Yeah, and when your opponent uses all of their mana, that is essentially taking an entire turn away from them. Yeah, they're still going to draw their card. They can play their land, but when you're in the market for a time walk, a 3-mana version is pretty nice.
I have to assume that Gabe does not want to let Jace Prodigy untap here, so we'll probably use a burn spell on it, you would expect.
I think he's going to use a burn spell on it if he has a Searing Blaze. I think if he does not have a Searing Blaze, it gets a little more murky on whether or not you're supposed to.
All right, so Monastery Swift Spear attacks, and once again we're playing that same game. Are you going to block my Swift Spear? What are you going to block it with? What spells do I have to prowess it up? And the answer is a lot of them from Gabe. See another Skullcrack in hand. See a Lightning Helix in hand.
And here, Ben may be incentivized to block with the Thing in the Ice because it could force Gabe to use his mana in a certain way. Oh, interesting. So Ben's going to take the damage again. I like this Ben being very patient here against his burn opponent. And I've seen Ben beat burn with this deck on multiple occasions already. So,
All right, here's a Grim Lavamancer. We're going to get an opt from Ben Seck, and that's going to remove a counter on thing in the ice. It's going to push. And with his opponent tapped out, Gabe Carleton-Barnes is going to pull a trigger here. Sacrifices Wooded Foothills.
and again, if he has a Searing Blaze, probably going to take this Jace Friend's Prodigy off the table. If not, I imagine he's just going to go to the Dome with something like
Lightning
Helix or Burrow's Charm or something like that, depending on what 2-mana burn spells are in his hand here.
All right. He does have the Searing Blaze. He's going to Searing Blaze Jace and Ben. He's going to drop Ben to 10 here. But Ben is going to get a window with which to cast Exhaustion if he wants right now.
And I do think he wants to.
All right, there we see a fetch land.
Oh, so he could also pass the turn, leaving open Cryptic Command if he so desired.
Yeah, but he can do that next turn as well if he
true.
gets the Exhaustion. And there it is, Exhaustion. Oh, come on, Gabe. I've played that card against you. You know what it does.
Yeah, Gabe has been playing this game for a very, very long time.
Okay. Then a Scalding Tarn. By the way, 2 counters now on Thing in the Ice. He's got an opt in hand, so he's going to be able to get that down to 1 and maybe untap and another spell and just kind of really set Gabe pretty far back.
It looks like Gabe doesn't have any 1-minute spells, so he's going to have to be content to just activate this Lavamancer this turn. Is the only thing he can really do.
Ben seems very happy.
Yeah, Ben is thrilled to be here playing the Taking Turns deck.
All right, passes, puts a tap land into play. Oh, this is where you just want to draw another Exhaustion. How many copies of Exhaustion does Ben play?
Ben is playing 2 copies of Exhaustion. One really nice thing that Ben has access to is As Foretold.
Oh, wow.
Ben has been playing this deck for a while. We played a bunch of this deck when we were sharing a hotel room together in Toronto. And a week and a half ago, while I'm shoveling 2 feet of snow out my driveway, I'm getting Facebook messages on my phone of all the different lists he has.
So here's an opt from Ben. 1 counter now on Thing in the Ice. Will he awaken the horror?
So this is kind of interesting because not the best draw step there for Ben. And he's in an interesting situation where he may just want to use Cryptic Command during his main phase, perhaps?
Weirder things have happened, but not today.
Yeah, going to choose not to do that.
You see Gabe rereading Thing in the Ice. You can see Ben along the rail watching his match, and I'm trying not to look at him because I don't want to know how this ends. Ben's at 9.
Gabe confirming how things work.
Just one thing that he was confirming.
Very aptly named card, Thing in the Ice.
It's a very flavorful card that has turned out to be, just powerful and finding its way into older formats. So there's an Arid Mesa. Here's a Goblin Guide. And Gabe, very aware of the card Cryptic Command. a card he's intimately familiar with.
Yeah, a very Gabe Carleton-Barnes-esque card, Cryptic Command.
So it's just kind of funny, right? You can't counter the Goblin Guide here because then it'll trigger the thing in the ice. Everything goes back in the hand, and you'll just play all your creatures back out, two of which will be able to attack this turn.
Hey, Gabe doesn't want to cast a burn spell here pre-combat, or even during combat, because he could be walking into counter magic plus a thing flipping. He may be thinking to himself that it might be worth it to play the burn spell now so that the thing flips and then he could replay his haste creatures and attack. But then you're attacking into a 7/8.
Yes.
That's not really where he wants to be either. A lot of different lines that Gabe can look at here. Ben's life total only 9. I mean, one more turn cycle, and Gabe should be in a pretty good spot here.
Yeah, I mean, Ben can falls to 7 from just a Grim Lavamancer activation.
Mm-hmm. Gabe could also get a little bit tricky here and actually kill the thing.
All right, well, Ben, he is going to attack Ben with everything. Says Goblin Guide ability, so card Scalding Tarn goes into Ben's hand as a result of the Goblin Guide attacking. Wow. Now what's the play for Ben? He's just going to Cryptic Command. He's not going to get into the blocking phase of things here.
Yeah.
He's going to return an Inspiring Vantage, which is sort of a little bit of a land destruction here.
Yeah. Does come into play tapped.
And I believe
forward.
Gabe's already played a land this turn.
Few burn spells there in hand for Gabe, but looks like all of his creatures are going to be coming back to hand.
Wow. Lightning Helix you. Drop you to 6. Gabe goes to 21. All your creatures come back to your hand now because of the Awoken Horror. Ben draws a card for the Cryptic Command as well, so pretty productive turn for him in terms of card drawing, but he's at 6.
Yeah, and he's also drawn a few lands in a row here, so Ben really needs to find some of these less expensive Time Warp effects. He also doesn't have the Howling Mind type effect that you really want to drop into play the turn before you start taking extra turns, and that's a really hard type of card to maneuver into play at all when you're playing against this burn deck. A lot of the time, before you start going off, you want to drop a Dictate of Crufix onto the battlefield during your opponent's end step. That way you do not give them additional burn spells.
Is it a card he's playing, or is he more of an Ancestral Visions type of deck here?
It looks like Ben is actually a Shoot Dictate altogether, which is a very surprising a choice here. He's had that card in most of his lists as of late. Instead, opting to play red for Lightning Bolt access.
So Gabe gets to play 2 creatures post-combat, the Grim Lavamancer and the Monastery Swiftspear.
Now, did Ben find Time Warp effect?
Doesn't look like he did. I mean, he's got a Temporal Mastery in his hand, but he's a full mana away from being able to play that. Assuming he plays land this turn. Plays tapped Steam Vents. It says go.
Scary situation to be in if you're Ben Seck. And I
Still a Goblin Guide to come down.
think Gabe may have found a way to win this game. Does Ben have any more counter magic in hand? Do we know?
I didn't see any, but I'm not sure. There's a Rift Bolt, a Skull Crack, and a Goblin Guide in hand for Gabe. Now, Gabe, anticipating taking another turn, suspends a Rift Bolt, plays his Inspiring Vantage, It was bounced last turn with a Cryptic Command. Wow. All right. Here comes Goblin Guide.
And does Ben have another answer here? Does not look like it.
Oh, he's going to draw a card. Both players are going to draw a card with Miko Koro, center of the sea.
And Ben drew Chase Friend's Prodigy, but if he gets another turn now, Time Warp or a Miracled Temporal Mastery will both be essentially good enough to win the game.
All right, well, he is going to get another turn here. It's an exhaustion.
Not quite. Not quite good enough.
He does have Temporal Mastery in hand. He can just.
Yeah, the thing is he doesn't have enough advantage off of that Temporal Mastery. Like the only thing he's getting out of that Temporal Mastery is cantripping again and getting the 7/8.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it gives him another turn to draw more Time Warps. But it's important to note that now again on another turn here he needs to hit a pretty specific set of cards.
There's a Lightning Bolt. Does that offer him anything here? That's really his red for his deck, right? He's playing just the Lightning Bolts.
Yeah.
Look at Gabe just protecting his life total.
Yeah.
Blocking the Awoken Horror. So Lightning Bolt, it looks like, is going to take down the Grim Lavamancer. We know it kind of doesn't matter here.
So what just happened there, I think, is an incredibly tight play from Gabe. I think 99% of players there activate the Grim Lavamancer when it gets bolted. But Gabe correctly recognizes that with the 3 points of burn in his hand and the Rift Bolt coming off suspend, he has lethal, and that he can play around exhaustion.
All right, well, that's what he's going to have to do. Ben plays Jace Friend's Prodigy, plays Exhaustion, passes the turn back to Gabe, but we know there is more than enough burn. Gabe says, okay.
Yeah, and that's going to be it.
Says 3 to you with Rift Bolt. Gabe's like, what is going on? What do I do? He says, Lightning Bolt you. And we're on to game 2 here in the Time Walk match. Fittingly, the Time Walk match.
And
I've argued that in Modern it should be called the Time Warp match. But that's not the hill I want to die on today. So we're going to see an Ancestral. No, we're not going to see Ancestral Visions suspended on turn 1 from Ben Seck here.
And that might lead us to believe that As Foretold might be in the picture here.
Here's Goblin Guide. Reveals a Snapcaster Mage. Decides to opt.
And let's see if he decides to keep the Snapcaster. Is a way for him to trade with that Goblin Guide.
No, he's going to push. He wants land.
Entirely reasonable. I like it. Yeah, and he found a land. He's going to be able to cast Serum Visions and play that tapped, depending on what he draws here.
Okay, here's Serum Visions. So now talk to us about As Foretold. How does that work? Why would he want to play Ancestral Visions off As Foretold as opposed to maybe just putting it into play, suspending it on turn 1?
So As Foretold will come off suspend on turn 5. You suspend it on turn 1. I'm sorry, Ancestral Vision will be cast on turn 5 instead of turn 3, potentially, off of a card like, oh my goodness, do you see what I see? A beautiful, goggled artificer experimenting. He looks crazy. That's Madcap Experiment. I think Ben Seck has a new plan of attack here in this post-boarded game right now.
What we call the spiciest of meatballs.
Yes, this is precisely what one would call a spicy meatball. Now, if Ben can get up to 4 lands, which shouldn't be that hard if he's as foretolding into Ancestral Vision on the following turn, then Gabe sees that Madcap experiment, and the jig is up.
So is that going to change? Well, there's Eidolon from Gabe. So here's As Foretold. Ben's going to take a little damage off of that. Now he's going to play Ancestral Visions for free. Draw 3 cards.
Ooh, no land there.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Ben, we won a game 3 here.
That Eidolon being on the battlefield is potentially a problem for Ben here, because even if he does start going off, it could be pretty serious. He really needs to find a 4th land and cast that Madcap experiment.
So explain what happens when he casts the Madcap experiment.
So when he casts this Madcap experiment, he is going to reveal cards until he reveals an artifact. He's going to put the artifact on the battlefield, and then it's going to deal damage to him equal to its converted casting cost.
What if he reveals 20 cards?
Conveniently, the artifact that he is playing is Platinum Imperion.
Oh, no, and it's on top of his library.
Oh, no! So Platinum Imperion being on the top of Ben's library means that
not
Ben
only is he not drawing a land.
So Ben not going to find a 4th land. Will also have his Madcap experiment, which essentially would have said you win the game for 4 mana, turned into a 4 mana do nothing here. Platinum Imperion says that. Ooh,
Molten Rain.
Yeah, and Gabe points out that, hey, I would have won this game even if even if everything was coming up Seck.
Wow. 1 counter goes on As Foretold.
Yeah.
Oh, this is just heartbreak here for Ben Seck, who was about to pull off one of the cooler possible victories here. He's down to 6, though. It's looking pretty grim.
Even with a
so
spell pierce in hand.
Push. He needs to push that down. He needs to find land, and hope there's nothing in hand for Gabe Carleton-Barnes.
Yeah, I think what he does here is he probably plays the Scalding Tar and then leaves open his Spell Pierce. And in doing so, but if he spell, okay, no, he can potentially do this. So the Spell Pierce can also be cast for free on Gabe's turn. An important thing to remember.
The narrowest of outs here. On 3 against the burn deck.
Yeah. There are many cards in Gabe's deck that read you win the game right now.
Oh, wow.
All right, a thing. Now, if Gabe does not have a 1 mana burn spell, he played the land untapped, he won.
He's going to start off with a Monastery Swift Spear.
Okay.
Follow up with another Monastery Swift Spear.
Oh my
and
goodness.
even if you counter this spell, it won't matter because I have the prowess triggers. He's like Spell Pierce, but he's like double prowess.
Yep.
Gabe Carleton-Barnes wins 2-0. Heartbreak for Ben Seck.
Yes.
Attempting to do the coolest things possible in the room. And he got burnt out. And this is actually, Burn's actually a pretty good matchup for him, he said.
Yeah, I like that burn matchup.
Yeah.
So.
But hopefully he'll right the ship and we'll get to see him again maybe on day 2 as he tries to complete 3 Grand Prix on 3 continents. As he makes his way, he's going to be playing in Sydney and I believe in Amsterdam over a pretty short span of time over the next few weeks. So good luck to him. We got a couple of quick commercial messages and then we'll be back with more action here at Grand Prix Phoenix.